mules are all ready. Are you set?
All set and raring to go. There is lots of excitement in the hacienda this morning. The men are rounding up the mules for our trip. The native women watch us curiously, for not many visitors make the log up into the chicle camps. We're off to a flying start. Then come 10 hours steady riding through the heart of the Yucatan jungle. And at sunset, ooh, how grand it is to arrive at camp with a big pan of hot cornbread waiting for us. Come along now as we go into the bush with the men at work and see just where the chewing gum trail commences.
The man who taps the trees for chicle is called a chiclero, and he has to know his job. Only one tree yields the right kind of sap, and to us it looks just like 1,000 other trees. It's called the sapote, but he can spot it even hiding behind a name like that. The bark is cut with a machete, sharp as a razor. Look out, man! Don't get on the receiving end of that little knife. The chicle runs out white as milk, and about as thick as heavy cream. The chiclero starts at the bottom of the tree and slashes zigzag cuts up the trunk. He makes each gash with 2 swift, powerful strokes, each one placed so that the sap runs into the one below it. After he reaches as high as he can from the ground, a stout rope and his bare feet take the place of a ladder, and on up he goes. It's an art that takes long practice. If the cuts are made too deep, the tree will be killed, and it takes nature 30 or 40 years to grow another. Looks easy, doesn't it? But remember, you're watching an expert. If you think you can do it, get up there and try. You'll find chewing gum isn't the only sap in the jungle. How is she running down below?
Running just fine.
And how does it taste?
All right, except there's no peppermint in it.
One man taps a string of 10 or 15 trees every day and returns the following day to collect the sap, which he carries in that queer-shaped bag on his back. The bark of the sapote has to heal for 4 or 5 years before it is cut again, so the chiclero must go deeper and deeper into virgin jungle for his livelihood.
Notice that pig back on the trail. He was the camp mascot. Watch him teasing that horse.
One of our men was missing when we arrived back at camp, so Manuel showed Emma-Lindsey how to call when anyone is lost. That horn, called the hututo, is carried by every veteran jungle. Uh-oh. You'll never get help that way.
Well, the man did come in, and here's what had detained him. A lost, hurt little dog whom he had found on the trail and had carried in his arms for miles and miles.
But let's get back and finish the job, or we won't earn our beans, rice, and coffee, the daily fare of the chiclero. The collected sap is poured into a big iron pot called a pila, which always made me think of witches and broomsticks and black magic when they put it on to boil. But the only magic they need is just enough heat to drive out the water.
Here's something we didn't expect. A snake fell from the palm-thatched roof and almost into our daily soup. Just one of life's little diversions in the jungle.
See how the sap is thickening? Just like boiling down sugar taffy. You know, many years ago, this gum was introduced into the United States as a proposed substitute for rubber. Well, that didn't work. It would stretch, but it wouldn't bounce. So they stuck to it until at it, he'll grow up to be a professional stick-up man. Emma-Lindsey got anything she wanted around that camp. You can see she had a pull with the men. But joking aside, these chicleros are extremely faithful. Here's a man who always sticks to his job. To ship this gum out of the jungle, they mold it into blocks, or marquetas. One block is worth around $7 or $8, and the total chewing gum products for a year go up to $50 million. Every block carries the mark of the chiclero who made it. The gum is still snow white, but by the time it reaches the shipping warehouse, its color has become the familiar gray. Here a chemist extracts a sample of every batch and dissolves it in a flask to determine its purity and its water content. That flask of his is a magic crystal in which he sees the work of hundreds of chicleros with their steaming cauldrons. And if their work is good and the product is pure, perhaps he can look ahead into some of the following chapters in the life history of the chicle that becomes chewing gum.
Down the Isthmus of Tehuantepec to Chavela, and you'll get the same royal welcome that we did. Here for the first time, we saw the handsome Zapotec Indian women in the costume peculiar to this part of Mexico. Notice the false skirts with the white pleated ruffles. Afternoon tea is no dull conventional affair at Chavela. How could it be, when we realize that we are sitting outside the very house that Hernando Cortez built for his home after he conquered Mexico? It has been in constant use since then. Inside, there are all the conveniences of this modern age, but outside, the old conquistador would recognize it as home sweet home, for it is unchanged. Life on this hacienda, so far removed from civilization, has a delightful simplicity about it. If you want a coconut to drink, you just send the yard boy up to get one. Notice Diego particularly, because he is the hero of the love story we came down to record with our camera. Here is another use for the big knife called a machete. Every native carries one and uses it as an all-round tool for cutting purposes, and sometimes for social service. What a grand, cool drink. Even the parrot wanted some.
But here's something just as good. Tortillas, the native bread of Mexico, made from sweet, fresh corn, ground on this stone that is called a metate. Who wouldn't want one made by a pretty Zapotec maiden with her expert little hands? Both she and her mother wear the embroidered blouses of this part of the country. The tortillas are cooked on a piping hot clay platter, and when they're finished, oh boy, are they good.
The women of Tehuantepec are the only ones in Mexico who wear this peculiar and spectacular lace headdress. It is worn this way for a fiesta and this way when going to church. The legend is that 200 years ago, a British ship was wrecked in the Gulf of Tehuantepec. A dead baby in an elaborate lace dress was found on the beach, and the Indian women were so fascinated by the unknown garment that they adapted it as a headdress, little sleeves and all. And now for our love story. Here comes Diego with his friends to ask for the hand of pretty little Lucita. He says to her father, Don Julio, "I love your daughter very much. Will you let me marry her? I will work hard and not drink too much, and I will always be faithful to her." But Don Julio flatly refuses. He says, "No, you're too ugly. You go and marry a monkey." Now those are fighting words in any language. And so the trouble starts. Lucita isn't supposed to be anywhere around. But what woman? Oh, well, you know. Oh, dear. Can it be that love's young dream is going to be a nightmare? But no, it's just part of the ancient custom. Don Julio has shown by his refusal how much he values his daughter. Now it's up to Diego to prove how much he wants her. No wonder Lucita's a little nervous. It must be like waiting at the church. But there's Diego, on a horse loaned through the courtesy of Hacienda Chivela. Come on, Lachenbar. Get going before someone tells Papa the bad news. Ándale, Lucita, get hoisted aboard. Don't be so slow.
Oh, there he comes.
Oh, hurry, you elopers. Give the horse a little encouragement. Get started, for goodness sake. Oh, he'll catch them yet. No, he's just too late. He says, pues, así es la vida, meaning, such is life. He has to consent to the marriage now, for Lucita has been compromised. She's been alone with a man on a strange horse. So Diego brings her the wedding dress and veil in a beautifully painted gourd.
There was a wedding that will long be remembered at Chivela. Bells were ringing, a brass band playing.
Yes, playing very lustily Yankee Doodle, which they told us was a popular American foxtrot. Here come the newlyweds, Senor and Senora Diego Garcia, at home to their friends from now on at Rancho Chivela. Did you ever see a sweeter bride or a prouder bridegroom? He tried to get her to smile at him, but she was much too shy. She confided to me afterwards, though, that being married was just like being up in the sky.
Well, that was all very well for the newlyweds. But we were interested in the fiesta that followed the wedding. The marimba music had been going steadily since early morning. All the girls were there in their prettiest dresses. Lucita and Diego asked Emma-Lindsey to put on a Tijuana costume in honor of their marriage. And you may be sure she didn't need any coaxing.
But the real feature, as far as the children were concerned, was the breaking of a decorated clay jar called a piñata, filled with candies and pennies. The blindfolded boy is given 3 chances to hit it with a stick. 1, 2, 3.
And oh, what a strike! Here's where friendship ceases. If Emma-Lindsey hadn't gone into the scramble for some of the candies, these little girls would have been out of luck.
That is one of our loveliest, happiest memories of Mexico. Beauty, romance, joy of living.
Mexico, the land that never lets you forget.
When you have to leave, with its magic spell in your blood, you can't say adios, goodbye, but only hasta luego.
Until we meet again.